The Wise Owl, a literary and art magazine, presents a tete-a-tete with a celebrated haiku poet whose name is synonymous with haiku and senryu. A well-loved editor and poet, his contribution to this realm of poetry is huge. As guest editor of The Wise Owl, I'm delighted and honored to present to you Michael Rehling, the grand old man of Senryu, who is kind, witty, compassionate, generous, cheerful, and so knowledgeable. Welcome, Mike. How are you today?
Good to be here. It's a sunny day in Presque Isle, Michigan, and I'm watching the squirrels out my window.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mike stays near the woods of
Right in the middle of the
woods. Michael is founder editor of Failed Haiku, and he has his co-editors Brian Rickett and Kelly. Very beautiful team, and every month we submit to him and get accepted and published. So that's why I say he's kind and compassionate. Correct, Mike?
I do no one any favors. I publish really good poems. If you submit good poems, guess what? You will get published. So we've enjoyed the relationship with you and with others, and particularly the Indian poets make up a great percentage of those that get published, which is one of the reasons why I made it a PDF.
Great, Mike. You've spent most of your life dealing in banking and finance. What made you change track and follow this creative path of writing haiku and senryu poetry?
Well, I've actually been writing poetry and short poems since the 60s. So when I was in college, and I got into it very accidentally. I was at Michigan State University and in East Lansing, Michigan. I was buying my books for my first semester, and they, at the checkout, there was this little book of haiku, the Peter Pauper Press. Not great haiku, by the way, not great translations. People will be quick to tell you, but it cost $1, which back then was probably like $10 today, or maybe more with inflation. But that's what got me into it, and the presumption was I practiced meditation, and so the whole, Zen thing association at the time with haiku was something that attracted me. So that's how I got into it. Banking and finance was more of an accident than poetry. You can't make a lot of money as a poet. And by accident, I got into banking and finance, and I never studied for it or anything. And but I did enjoy it. And I did financing for small businesses and not large businesses, and individuals who particularly people who had come from Korea, from other areas, and didn't have established credit. We helped them get computers. Back in the day, that was a very expensive thing, and people wanted to get computers for their kids and stuff. That's my background in finance and banking, small business and small loans to individuals. And I had a ball, and I think I did some good, but I'd much rather write poetry.
That's wonderful. Were you influenced by the old masters in these books? And how was it in these books you talked about?
What was it again?
In these books which you read, the $1 books, they had the haiku by the great masters, or were there a general haiku in that?
Well, yes, they had the masters. They had Basho, Busan, and but they also had things that were not
Okay.
haiku.
Okay.
They were actually Zen koan.
Yeah.
And so we sort of chuckled at it. One of them, they had a haiku. They purported haiku, and it's move forward, move backwards. By all means, don't wobble. That's a Zen
Yes,
koan.
that's Zen.
It has
I'm
nothing to
reading,
do with haiku.
Mike, I'm reading a beautiful book by R.H. Blatt on Zen and in literature and Oriental. It's beautiful. And, it gives such a perspective on the whole thing. And it opens
Well,
up your mind.
yeah, and I started. It was at the time in the '60s.
Yeah.
Gurus and teachers from India were the thing.
Yeah. Yes.
All over.
Yes.
So Swami Satchidananda, and of course
Mm.
Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yes. The masters of India, yoga masters. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually where I got into it. Zen was sort of to me, well, I don't want to spend too much time on philosophy, but I was a philosophy and religion major in high school, along with theater. But the thing that intrigued me the most was that it doesn't take a lot to communicate or be profound. And I think that's what Zen, that's what the yoga is about. That's what great teachers everywhere, in every religion.
Yeah, I think, Mike, your persona, your lifestyle, everything reflects that serenity, that that thing of declutter, that shows in your whole personality. That because you are meditating, that serenity is there on your face. Like one can feel it. Those vibes are there. And you are a name to reckon with in the world of haiku and scenery poetry. And our viewers would really love to know what attracted you. Say that Zen and reading these old masters, it attracted you. But what are the challenges you faced when you started doing this? How old were you then?
Well, I was 18, 19 years old when I started really seriously writing poetry and short poetry. I started, some of my favorite poets, Archibald MacLeish. People don't know him today. They don't even study him. He won 3 Pulitzers, a Bollinger, and a Tony, believe it or not, for a stage play he wrote. And he wrote a lot of very one-line haiku. But the people who inspired me the most, when I have the difficulty I had is the one everybody has with the standard definition of 5-7-5 and locking it in.
Yes.
But in the '80s, I had the pleasure the company that I worked for was bought by a Japanese bank, Sanwa.
Okay.
And so I came in contact with a lot of people who, and by the way, everyone in Japan knows haiku.
Everyone knows.
Certainly
Writes haiku. I've been to Japan. I've seen the fervor of haiku over there in schools, in colleges, everybody, housewives, everybody is writing haiku.
Yeah, and by the way, they teach English there. I mean, even in the '80s, that was just the beginning of it. Now it's really ingrained. But so I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people, and they straightened me out. Believe it or not, it was the Japanese who straightened me out. He said, Americans. Americans. Oh, no, you don't understand. And I go, okay, tell me, enlighten me. And then it was the people that most influenced me, and I say this all the time. When I started to get into haiku, I got into it on the internet. The old Prodigy, which you're probably too young to remember. Back in the '80s, it was the beginning of the internet. And CompuServe, we had remote bulletin board systems back in the '70s and '80s. We could start to interact with each other. And that's why I stay pretty much, we'll talk about it later, but I stay pretty much on the internet. It's not because I don't like books. I clearly do. I had one time I had 3,000 pieces in my library. I say pieces because a lot of them were chapbooks and small things. I'm giving them away now.
You're giving them away now. Yes, I read some.
I think that people need that. The hardest thing I had was to reach people, and I got to connect with some really neat people. One of which, Marlene Mountain, who you,
Yes.
Marlene had her own Yahoo group. They don't exist anymore.
I see.
And it was cryptically called Marlene Mountain.
Oh.
Everything Marlene did had her name in it.
Marlene.
And I never met her in person. And in fact, I know very few people. I think Bill Higginson and Penny Harder and a few people met with her. Personally, she was an artist, and just a wonderful influence. And she opened me up to a lot of things. One line haiku.
One line haiku is amazing. Her one line haiku is amazing.
Yeah, she's famous for that. But she's one hell of a poet. She wasn't tied to one line either.
Yeah, she had haiku 3 lines too. Yeah, she wrote Chenru too.
And I tell people this all the time. Francine Parad, who you wouldn't know.
I've heard of all these Francine Parad.
Yeah. She was very supportive of me in the beginning, and and the other person who I only met him twice in person, but we carried on an email conversation for years, was William Higginson, Bill Higginson. And he and Penny wrote the Haiku Handbook, which was the biggest seller, I think, to this day, a book on haiku.
The Haiku Handbook, yes.
Although there are others. My favorite today is Lee Gerga's book on haiku with Haiku, the Poet's Guide, Modern Haiku Press. I strongly recommend that. But Bill and I went back and forth. He was a very tough grader. He took me on as a student. We actually signed a contract. He was an interesting guy. And
like you were based in Michigan, and where were these people based? I mean, were they close by or they were far?
He was in New Jersey at the time, and he and Penny lived there, and he was a great influence. I mean, he still is. I read all of his books, but he was a tough grader. I mean, I tell people the highest recommendation he ever had, one of my haiku, or it was actually a senru, was not bad. And he was that way with his own poetry. He was the toughest grader of his own work, and that's the other thing I learned from him. But other people have influenced me greatly. Roberta Beery, who is the Hyben editor at Modern Haiku now, but her work got me. I mean, I just connected with her. All of them have one thing in common: the ability to be daring, to go do something different than what other people do. And you have several poets that I admire in India, Kala Ramesh.
Yes.
Kala's another.
She's a mentor to so many of us. Yeah.
She's a mentor to me.
Yeah, she's.
She is one of those people that you can't avoid listening to. And
she's special. She's special.
Yeah. And there are many. I mean, just so, and it's the women of haiku who took me in. Okay. But I was also greatly influenced Michael Dillon Welsh, Charles Trumbull, and I just, to me, I think you listen to everybody, and then one of the thing that great teachers teach you, and I'll cap it at this, is
be you.
To be yourself.
Be yourself. Be true to yourself. Yes.
It's your own poem.
Your voice.
Don't worry about people that say I I don't like what you do, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right with me.
Yeah. So you had so many good people, special people who, mentored you and helped you along your journey of haiku senryu. Now, did you share your verses with them before submission sometimes?
With what?
Did you
Your
share
submission?
did you share your verses, haiku and senryu, before submitting to any journal? Would you share with them?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
a lot. In
you would.
fact, I write, the Busan Challenge,
Yeah.
10 poems a day for 100 days.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I've been on that now for several years. I write thousands of poems. They're terrible, most of them.
No, but still you write. So that's the big point, to write 10 poems a day. So that's writing 10 poems a day. How much do you read?
A lot. If I started showing you all the books that are piled on the floor behind me and on the desk and in the bookshelves, and I used to have 3,000. I've still probably got 700, 800. I keep giving things away,
That's good. That's good.
because I'm at 76. I'm going to be.
Mm.
My family won't know what to do with my haiku books. The I think it's probably the best way to learn haiku is to read it,
Yes.
read good haiku. That's another reason why I focus on the internet. It's free,
Yes.
and you don't, because it would bankrupt people to
Buying,
buy every
buying
book.
books and subscribing to journals.
So I think the most important thing is to read haiku, good haiku, and yeah, you hang out with people. And I've done Busan challenges the most, I think, with Kelly Moyer.
Yeah.
Kelly and I have done Busan challenges together. I've done them with Terry French, and others who don't necessarily want to be named, but you do it together and you critique each other's book gently, kindly. Because if you write 10 poems a day, you'll be lucky if one of them ever gets published, or you can even shape into something publishable. You're trying to get ideas down, and be creative. And the people that have fun, like Michael Dylan Walsh, I mean, he's been published many more times than me. I probably had 1,000 publications a decade ago.
Yeah. Do you focus that? Are you writing a haiku? Are you writing a senryu? Or you just write what comes to you? Because this is something which is there in all these budding poets. When we write, is it a haiku? Is it a senryu? Have I used the kigo word? Have I used the kireji?
Well, I happen to Alan Pizzarelli is another, and Alexis Rotella. Those two.
Yeah.
Comes to Senru. I'm not the Senru guy. They are. As far as I'm concerned, I would listen to them. But I would tell you that for me, it's fairly simple. There is a line that you draw between Senru and haiku.
True.
But I can't tell you what it is. I can't define it away. And that's the other thing about haiku and all of haiku. I've been defining it too terribly. I think you write the creativity right out of it with your definitions. Yes. Kala knows that, and and she's very good. Yeah. And you have to blur the lines in some way. But I would agree with Alan. There's a line that you can see once you realize it. It's the intent of the poem. If the intent of the poem is a human interaction with a rose, then it's a senryu. If you prick your finger on the thorn, then it's about the human. It's not about the rose. On the other hand, if you're just talking about the beauty of the petals unfolding, you have a haiku. The fact that there's a human looking at the rose, that doesn't make it senryu. Anyway.
You
It's,
started.
I think it's a lot of fun. I
Yeah,
enjoy doing what I do.
yeah, of course. That is why we all write. I mean, it's for the fun of it, for the enjoyment of it, and what it adds to our life, the value it adds to our life. It makes it so much more, gives it so much more meaning. And you started Haiku Hut in 2001, and you managed to get as many as 65 poets under one umbrella. And this served as a creative pool, as also a circle that encouraged and mentored poets. Kala Ramesh often speaks about it as a second home to many poets like her. What was your vision then for Haiku Hut, and why did you eventually feel the need to shut it down?
Hmm. Well, starting it, there were many, as I said before, there were these Yahoo groups and things like that. Many excellent groups, World Haiku, uh, uh, Basho's Beatniks. That was another site, and Marlene Mountain. And what happened is a lot of them fell into arguments over what is a haiku. People don't realize that the haiku wars, where people were arguing about what a haiku was all the time,
Okay.
the politics I don't get into. I don't take sides. I'm not interested. I'm interested in everybody's view. If you were to tell me that you can only write haiku if you live in India, okay. For you, by the way, that's probably true. You get most of your inspiration from your surroundings and your culture. I've been to India. I love it. And I was inspired by it. So, but I'm in the North Woods of Michigan. Not at all like India. First of all, you've never had minus 37 degrees outside.
Give us the shivers.
So I'm gonna write poems about icicles and
Yes,
frozen
yes,
trees.
yes, yes,
You might not be, if you wrote one, you could write a good poem about it, but you'd have to imagine it.
yes, yes.
And I think that's what inspires people. I think they make it too hard. Our daily life is really about each individual moment, you know. And so right now you're getting me to talk about things I hadn't planned to talk about. I wasn't. Okay. So we're together, separated by thousands of miles
Oceans.
on on Zoom, and you're getting me to say things that I hadn't planned to say.
Yeah.
So, and you're taping it, so I can't say I didn't say it later. You know, that's what haiku and center. That's what really attracts me almost exclusively, right, in haikai today. I mean, 99%. I like free verse poetry and other forms, but I think that what got me into haikai and the focus was the focus on what it is that's in front of me right now, and how I'm living my life, because we do live it just that way. If you're sitting around thinking about, will I become a millionaire by 30? I would tell any young person, you're wasting your time. Don't worry about that. If it happens, you could win it by winning the lottery ticket, or you could work for 10 years and discover a diamond mine. It could happen. All kinds of things can happen to you. But the moment you're in, that is very attractive to me, because it's where we actually live our lives. And I'm going to remember this interview, not just because it's taped. I'm going to remember it because we're interacting together, talking about haiku. And I'm going to say, God, I wish I said that instead of this. Maybe there's a haiku in that. I don't know.
You can write haiku on anything, Mike. You are too good. You're too good.
Everyone can. So can you. You're a fine poet. That's the point.
When,
if you
when my
focus on
when my Senryu was
all,
nominated this time, I mean in the shortlist for Touchstone Award, you know, I was beyond thrilled. I said, I mean, I mean, my Senryu of childhood home, I open and close the wrought iron gate, and it was in the shortlist for the individual poems for Touchstone Award, and I was thinking in my mind, how did I write this? Because I had those memories of my childhood. Because you know, so those things they come back to you when you write, and how much joy those things give you when you express them. And I think haiku has added so much richness to my life. I was also a banker like you, Mike. For 30 years, 29 years, I was a banker. And then I quit banking to start social work. I started in a non-government organization, non-profit. And now I'm into poetry. So re-engineering, reinventing every day. And it's so beautiful because nature, I live in a city called Chandigarh, which is a city of gardens. Called City Beautiful. So we are always, you know, watching the flowers and trees, and that is the inspiration. Just like you, I heard you watch chipmunks and you write poetry. So that is the beauty. I sit in my garden and watch squirrels, and that is the beauty of haiku. It gives you
well,
so much joy. Gives you so
one
much.
of my favorite poems is right above my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the pine boughs, the
Mm.
politics of
Mm.
chickadees.
Oh, just imagine this. Just imagine.
That made the cover of
Beautiful.
Mayfly, and
So
I'm
beautiful.
so happy about that. That's a haiku, by the way.
Yeah, because it is a haiku.
The,
Chickadees.
the politics I was referring to was entirely
Okay.
bird life.
Yeah.
We have chickadees that nest right behind me. I look out my window
Yeah.
uh, in my office, and
Yeah.
right behind me, I have 6 acres of old oak forest.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And so we look out, and the chickadees are always fussing with each other over something, you know.
Such a
And I was thinking, you know, the we in the world, I mean, you have it in India, we have it in America, there's the politics. Okay. Well, the politics of chickadees is a lot more interesting to me than the politics of
politicians.
humans.
Wonderful.
I don't know
Wonderful.
what they're fighting about, but they
Yeah.
look a lot like us.
Yeah.
I feel very connected to nature.
Yeah.
And by the way, one of the places that I love is I was in I when I worked, we did a lot of software projects. That's what drew me to India on a business level. And we'd go to Bangalore, and the botanical gardens there are beautiful.
Yeah, it's a tech
Okay.
city. Otherwise, it's a tech city. Bangalore is a tech city. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when I went there the first time, they were experimenting. It was,
Mm,
I think there were 6 million people at the time. They were experimenting
mm,
with traffic lights. They
mm.
had like 5 or 6 in a city of 6 million. And I was thinking, there's 6 in one block of New York. They
Things
could
have
there'd be good
changed
luck.
now. Things have changed now, Mike.
Oh yeah. Now they got traffic. And they got about a couple more
Yeah,
million people.
yeah. But you haven't come
But
to India after that?
huh?
You haven't come to India after that visit?
No, since I've retired,
Mm.
I'm not this is I'm going to my last haiku meetings here.
Okay. Mm.
Uh, I just the travel is too much. My wife and
Strenuous.
I are
Travel is
retired,
strenuous. Yes, yes.
and I can't. But I love India, and I can talk to you whenever I want on
That's so
Zoom.
beautiful. That's so
Feel free.
beautiful. And you have been providing platforms to showcase poetry, haiku, senryu of other poets. So,
Oh,
what is the inspiration behind this selfless desire to exhibit poetry by poets from across the globe? And we are all privileged ones. We get this opportunity, and you have given it
no,
to us.
no, you gave it to me. Here's how it works. I say this all the time, and they think I'm joking, but I'm not. Uh, editors are con artists. They're conning you. They're conning you into sending your best poetry to them so they can read it.
Yeah.
It's free. I get to read. When I was editing the issues, I would read 2,000 poems submitted to me
Oof.
a month.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, 2,000, and you say, well, that's a lot. Actually, I was still reading books. The joy of short poems is that they can capture your imagination
Yes.
in less than a minute sometimes.
And some of them stay with you. They're so short and sweet.
Oh,
They stay with you. Yeah.
yeah, and uh, 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 Roberta Berry's Unworn Necklace is an iconic
Mm.
book, and I was fortunate enough to when she read it the first time when it came out. It was many years ago. I gotta be 12, 14 years ago. And it's been in 5 or 6 printings now.
Oh,
But that book I still remember, and I still remember her reading the poems.
yeah.
And so I think that one of the things that inspires me is that the reason you're an editor is because you enjoy reading the poems of others. And there's a very old story. Are you familiar with an organization we have here in America called the Salvation Army?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
But by the way, not shilling for them. I'm not associated in any way. But they had the founder of that organization, when he was in his 80s,
Mm.
was unable to come and address the conference. He was dying.
Mm.
And they said, "Oh, you've got to send us your message.
Yeah.
Send us your message." And he said, "Okay." He said, "I'll write down my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'll put them in an envelope and seal them, and you do not open the envelope until you are prepared to read it for the first time at the meeting."
Eating. Mm.
So the gentleman who was going to read it stood up, opened the envelope, and there was one word:
Mm.
others.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Amazing.
You that's you
They,
don't
they exist
it,
for others. Selfless. Totally selfless. Wonderful.
no, and that's the way you get your own. You're not going to be a happy person if
Yeah.
you exist for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're not, because you'll never make yourself happy. The
Yeah.
world's never the way I would want it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would like to look like Brad Pitt, but I don't. And I don't have muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So, you know,
You are good as you are, like you said in the beginning. That
but that's the powerful thing,
yeah,
and that's what
yes,
motivates me as an editor, is
yeah,
I want to read the poems of others. I want to see other people's ideas
yes,
come out of it.
yes,
And I wanted to be,
yeah,
I don't think I've ever said this before that as directly, but I wanted to be a poet's editor. I wanted to be an editor who poets said, I feel comfortable sending my stuff to this guy. And if it stinks, he won't berate me. I
yes,
won't publish it, but I'm not going to berate you. If it's great, he'll applaud, you know, and if it's interesting, even to others, not to me. I've said this before and I'll say it again. You know, I publish poems that I myself would not write, uh, and that the style is not something that I particularly would choose for myself.
mm,
But I know other people will enjoy it.
so
And
important.
some of the great editors, they're sort of unsung. People don't know who they are. Um, as commonly, Randy and Shirley Brooks, who do Mayfly, one of my favorite journals. It only has 15 poems in it. Comes out twice a year.
Mm,
I mean, but I can carry that around for months,
Mm.
a single issue, and read it and read it and reread it. The other is Acorn, just poems.
Mm.
Okay. And I'm not in any way. I love modern haiku. I love Frog Pond. All the journals that are out there, I get a kick out of. Certainly, all of the electronic ones. I'm not going to try and name them all, but I'll tell you, it's the poems of others, and it's encouraging other people to write
Very true.
and enjoy this. I'm not an expert.
And
Okay.
this thing, what you are saying today, what you're saying, is there on the failed haiku page. You say that there. And it is so encouraging to read. And this legacy of yours, this teaching of yours has been passed on to Brian and Kelly, or whosoever the editor comes in. Because when we submit, we see their comments, and they're so encouraging. They will say, like Brian says, Neena, you write more haikuish. Your writing is more haiku. I said, because I live in, that's my inspiration comes from gardens. I keep on walking in the gardens. Anyways, so he will say, this poem of yours is very good. Send it to this journal. I mean, I get so touched. Then Kelly, what so many editors, guest editors came, and they were also Terry. They were all so good. And they would say, keep this for the free issue. Don't keep this. This is a themed issue. So every time, and then you have in the Heron's Nest, you have Faye Ayogi. I mean, she'll guide. Which editor has time to guide today? But she would say, this is the one I'm accepting, and this is my feedback on the two I didn't accept. So I really, and those two will get accepted in any journal I send it to, because she's done some workshopping on it. So I'm privileged. I feel so privileged. I mean, so many. Joe, today, Wales Haiku has come today. He's so motivated. So many editors. I mean, I don't want to take names here, all of them, but they're also good. I mean, I feel that getting in touch with these editors has also, enhanced my learning, and they will guide that you read this book, that you go to this site. That is the beauty of learning, because we are all learners. We're all learners. Yeah.
Hey, people have to try things, and you asked about Haiku Hut, though. That's what got us into this. I'll just recap that one. That was a group of people who were running away from all the fighting and arguing about haiku, and we set a rule. You can critique somebody's poem, but that's it. It's the poet's poem, the poet's rule. That was my rule. There's only one rule, the poet's rule. If I write a poem and you don't like it, that's okay. That doesn't bother me. If you say I don't like it because of this, and this, and I disagree with you, that's okay. If I say, you know what, points 1 and 2, I think you're wrong about that. But point 3, boy, you got something there. I don't need that word. I don't need to be that direct. I don't need to mention fill in the blank, whatever the suggestion was. But in the end, it's your poem. Knock yourself out and have fun with it, because in the end, whether it gets published or not published, these were your thoughts at that moment. These are things you were sharing with yourself. And it's cheaper than psychotherapy. That's
yeah. You got stuck, Mike.
I think Roberta Beery is the one who told me that.
Got stuck. Hello. ओहो स्टक हो गया हमारा इंटरनेट तो नहीं स्टक हुआ hello yeah
I think we lost you there
now.
for
I
a
think we
brief
lost
second.
each other for a minute. We got each other back now, thankfully.
One of the things that I learned from I learned not from a teacher or a Roshi. I learned it in medical school. I didn't go to medical school. I worked at a medical school, but we got to sit in on the lectures, and I was listening to two of our psychiatrists, Petrini and Petrelli, man and a woman, and they were talking about how do you bring people out of depression, and they said the problem with depression is people try and get out of it too quickly. They're down here and they try and go up here and they get out of balance. He said, what we try and do is get people to find a level they're comfortable at and move up slowly.
Gradually. Yeah.
That's what we do. And I thought that's the way. If you put a smile on your face and you're happy, by the way, other people smile back at you. You're smiling back at me. Yes. If you're walking around like this all the time, with agonized over the pain you're in, and how you didn't get published, and nobody cares about you, well, nobody will rush up to care about you if you're that painful person that they have to meet. So just be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes, yes.
I think someone in India said that.
Yes.
And
Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi said it.
Yeah.
Be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah.
Exactly. And
we use this for our foundation's byline.
Yeah. Well, I tell people we have in America we have Martin Luther King Highway. Yes. And in India there's MG Highway. Yes. And every city has one. Yeah. And that's the highway you want to be in.
We have him on our currency notes. He's the father of the nation. So our viewers would also be curious to know, Mike, what was your motivation behind setting up Kernels and Cattails, Under the Basho, Living Scenario, Anthology?
I did not set those up. Those were actually I edited at those places.
You were the editor of these. Okay, that's
the Cattails and Chris started as
Kernels and Cattails, yeah.
And Cattails, that was Anya. And the Living Senru Anthology and Under the Basho and the Living Senru Anthology, that was Hansateki and Don Bear, who are both phenomenal people. I've met Don in person, and he is phenomenal, and he is so he's the inspiration, and Hansateki is the tech, literally, behind those sites. And they asked me to do it, and I did it, because it was a lot of fun.
You are a tech person too. You have a lot of knowledge in your hands.
I am, but I'm not. That isn't how I want to be known. I do it in the background for people if they needed help, and there are a number of people who are on my sites right now that are on my servers, but that's private, and I do it to help people and to make them and to help them get motivated and get their word out, because the internet and specifically PDF. I like PDF because a lot of people who read.
There's a reach. No, it has an extended reach. Yeah.
You can download it, put it on your phone, put it on your computer.
Share it. Yeah. It's beautiful.
You're very fortunate. If people don't realize it, but India has a ton of fiber optic cable, probably more than anywhere else in the world. Okay, right now, and so you're very fortunate that you have good internet.
Yes, very fortunate.
But a lot of places do, so they can go download a PDF and take it with them. And if it's 200 pages, you can't keep going to an internet cafe and paying.
It's time.
So
It's time.
you can download it. So PDF is that's the reason why Failed Haiku was a PDF, so I could get international. And I have readers in China, in Russia, in all over Eastern Europe, certainly Western Europe, the UK, certainly India, Australia, New Zealand.
Wow.
Okay, I could never reach them in any other way.
Yes, yes.
So that was the key. And Sunru was a neglected form. Alexis Rotilla had started Prune Juice and passed it on. Terry French was editing it. She's one of my favorite editors, a good friend. The I think that I saw it was neglected. There was only that one place, and I thought let's start another one and let's work together, Prune Juice and Failed Haiku, to promote each other.
Now I come to the next question for you. That many people have asked me why has Mike named this journal Failed Haiku, especially because it's a journal of Senryu, not of haiku. So what made you choose this title for the journal? People are
Two
intrigued.
things. Two things, and they're actually they're somewhat related.
Yeah.
First of all, it was a joke. I was at an meeting. I made a bad joke, and by the way, I don't think Alan Pizzarelli's ever forgiven me for the joke, but I had listened. This is many years ago. This is about 14, 15 years ago.
Okay.
And Alan Pizzarelli gave a thing. We were in HNA conference in Winston-Salem.
Okay.
And gave a presentation on Senru. And afterwards, the people were talking, and they weren't even talking to me. I wasn't even part of the conversation. I was doing something on my computer, sitting in the corner. And somebody turned to me from that conversation and said, "Mike, what do you think a Senru is?" And jokingly,
Oh, I got it.
I said, "It's a failed haiku. That's all it is." And I got a laugh, and Alan Pizzarelli frowned at me. And he still frowns at me when I talk about failed haiku. I think get used to it that I'm joking. And the second reason is practical. If you go to Google and you search for Senru, you'll get 100,000 hits.
Results.
If you put the word haiku in,
Oh,
you get 2 million.
yes.
So since I wanted to reach people, and I'll give you yes, I am a techie. I know how to get the word out, and the word out was have haiku in the name, and I did put the tagline underneath, a journal of English Senru.
That's beautiful.
And so it was a joke,
explains.
and it was a
It
way
explains.
to get
Your tagline explains
promote.
Your tagline explains it, but then sometimes when we put it on social media, because I am also like to put it on Facebook, Insta, Twitter, and my blog. I like to share, and I like to share it with my family and friends circle and things like that.
Yeah.
So then many will say, "Why failed haiku? Why are you submitting to failed haiku?" I say because it's a Senryu.
It's just a joke, but it worked because if you put in failed haiku, it pops up at the top of the page every time in Google, because they've associated those two words. They've associated it at YouTube, and so there's no sense in publishing a journal that nobody reads.
Right. This is very popular. Your failed haiku is extremely popular.
We get anywhere from 4,000 to 6,000 downloads of the PDF every month.
Just a minute. And how many submissions? How many hundreds and hundreds of submissions?
Oh, anywhere from it's around. Depends on whether it's a full issue or not, and the time of year, and whether there's a contest. But anywhere from it's about 250 to 300 submissions. and 10 poems each.
Good number.
Most people
Yeah.
hit the max.
Yeah.
So it's several thousand poems a month that you read. And that includes Ivan, Haiga, Renge, and we are open to everything, Kyoka, you name it. Anything that's I use the term in my initial Senru-ish. If it's close.
That.
If the form you're using is somewhat close to Senru,
yeah.
I'll publish.
If you think it's Senru-ish, then send it. Written.
And here's the other thing. I want people to be very open about what it is
Yes.
that they're doing, and I want to be very open to read anything you come up with. And then I can publish it.
You had one issue where you said that if you have rejected one, send those two. Yeah, I remember one theme.
I love Haiban. Haiban is probably my favorite part of Haiku.
Yeah.
It is, because you can tell the story. And Kala's the same way. Shaloka. Haiban is one of those interesting ways that you can communicate. There's the title, there's the prose, which I think is a prose poem, and there's the haiku or senru. And I think you can have some fun with it. I'm working on a new thing that I'm trying, and I'm going to do it in video, extemporaneous Haiban, where I just take a topic. Somebody throws me a topic, and I write it on the fly. We'll see how that goes. It's going to be interesting.
Very interesting.
I want to see how quick I can think of.
This leads me, Mike, to the next question.
What
is your process of writing a haiku or a senryu verse? Do you conceptualize your idea, then you put it on paper, or you digitally, you document it as a finished product? How do you do it? I mean, this is an important question for all of us.
I don't use paper.
You use notes?
Yeah, I use if I have I have a recording device always in our hand.
You just record it. Great.
I record my thoughts.
Yeah.
In the moment, and ideas. It's just a combination of words. Sometimes it's just a phrase. We have the fragment and the phrase in haiku and senru. Sometimes all I have is the phrase or the fragment. I don't have a poem. But I record it. I come home. I put it in digitally into Google Docs. That's where I use all my stuff. It's all in the cloud. And I take it from there. And you work and rework. And sometimes I go back. I have to be honest with you. I'll go back years. I've written tens of thousands of poems. People think you're exaggerating. When I say that, there's some people, he's kidding. Oh no, you can ask people who've done Busan challenges with me. I can go right through them. Tens of thousands of poems. Now, a lot of them aren't great poems.
But still,
that's not the point.
Deserves a clap.
But I'll go back to something I wrote in 2008.
Yeah. You polish it? What will you do? You'll polish it, or what will you do with it?
Sometimes you polish it. Sometimes you say, why didn't I ever submit that in 2008? That's a finished poem. What? And it gets published. Okay. I went through a period, I think it was 2013. I hadn't gotten anything published. I hadn't submitted. I hadn't done anything for a year. And then suddenly I grabbed a bunch of poems from, literally, they were from 2008. I was telling you the real story. And just started submitting them. And, editors would send me back these kind comments. Oh, I'll take these, or this one, or that one. And oh, you're really on a roll, Mike. Now I can't believe you're so creative. I was in a dry period. All I was doing was going back to 2008 and digging out the old gems out of the mine.
But they were gems. You could mine them later. That's fine. And nowadays you're experimenting haiga a lot. I've seen a lot of your haiga on Facebook.
Oh yeah. I've done thousands of Haiga. And I've gotten a lot of them published back in the old days, in Haiga Online and uh, the Simply Haiku and a lot of those places. But you know, that's just the other thing. Uh, that's why we did the Jane Reichhold contest. No, Jane wasn't particularly, by the way, she wasn't famous for, she was famous for questioning the value of Senru, by the way. But she wrote a lot of killer Senru.
Yeah.
And she also was an artist and a photographer and a translator. And I really loved Jane. She was a wonderful person. And I think that she sort of inspired me to just to have at it with Haiga. The other person is Ron C. Moss in Australia.
His book is
There's
also a masterpiece. I read his book in Seattle last summer. Oh, it was fascinating.
phenomenal, and he's one of a kind. And I did an interview with him for Failed Haiku, and we're friends. We've been friends. He was on Haiku Hut back in the day, and I tell you, he was an inspiration to me because we both started together with Adobe and photography and haiku on Haiku Hut, putting the two things together. Like I tell people, he went to Mars, and I'm still trying to get to Chicago with my Haiga. He's done another level. Debbie Strange is another person who's pretty phenomenal with Haiga.
Yeah, of course.
Sandy Prey, Alexis Rotella, Chris Kondo, all those folks. I mean, they're really stunning. And so yeah, I and that's the other thing that PDF allows you to do is to mix and match all of the different things. I'm into Renge. I'm not good at it yet, but I'm getting into it. I love Gary Gay. He's a photographer by profession.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I wish I could have found a way to make my living as a
I met him
photographer.
at the HNA conference on Zoom, and he helped us write our Renge. And fortunately for us, me and Billy D, we got the second prize in the Renge contest.
Yeah, he is
that was
phenomenal.
that was a good thing. So why don't you share a couple of your favorite Senryu?
Oh, my favorite Senru. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I have favorites anymore in my old age. I will
Mike, you'll always be evergreen. You're not old.
my what?
You're an evergreen poet.
Oh, yeah. Evergreen
Yes.
is my good
That
friend.
my youth. Your heart is youthful. Your eyes are youthful. So your smile is youthful. Everything is youthful about you. Nothing is old.
Well, let me give you a sense for some of the things that I've done, and I'll see if I can entertain you with it. Let's see. Hang on a second. I wasn't as totally prepared as I should have been. Forgive me.
Never mind.
I closed my windows so that I could have you here. This is one I particularly like. This is an image that this is a Senru from that sort of comes from the heart. I chopped the kale the way he always liked it, my long dead friend.
Wow. Even after he's gone, you chop it the way he liked it.
Yeah. The things that you remember about people.
Yes, yes.
You know. It's those silly little things that actually,
Stick with you.
oh yeah, and this man who he passed away a few years ago,
Get it. I
and he had been in Vietnam.
the war.
He was his his mother during the 60s. Mothers had these strange ideas. Said, join the Coast Guard. That way they can't draft you, and you won't have to go to Vietnam. And he wound up on a Coast Guard cutter in the Mekong Delta.
Sorry for the loss. Sorry.
It's that talk about a reversal of fortune. But he was an artist. Went to Leighton School of Design in Milwaukee, and we were neighbors and friends for years, and visited Ab and I when we moved to Detroit and back to Detroit, and just a phenomenal individual, a poet, just a great man.
Great loss.
And that was an odd thing. I was chopping kale, and suddenly I thought of Ron, and that's the inspiration behind that poem.
Very
And
poignant. Very poignant.
and I think that
touches the heart. Yeah.
yeah, that got to me, and I think that so that's one of my favorites today. You know, I I think that if you can find my poetry almost
I
anywhere.
know your poems. I keep reading. I go on your blog too, and I've seen subscribe and your videos, and I just enjoy them. I heard your interview of Terry, and I keep on listening to your and I enjoy, and it's a learning for me. But I know you're not in favor of publishing print editions of your poetry, as you feel that it's a destruction of trees and more trees. But we would all like to know if you're working on a digital compilation of your work or some other creative project. Please do share with our viewers.
Well, I thought about it, but I have too many favorites. I'm afraid I'd have a 1,000-page PDF or something. But there's some of my stuff that's at michaelrehling.com and mikerehling.com.
Yes.
I've posted some of that stuff, but I thought about it, and I thought about getting somebody to help me edit it.
Compile it.
But every time I bring it up, people say, oh yeah, I'll help you. And then they see that there's 10,000 poems to look at, and they go, and I never hear from them again. So I don't know. I think the thing that I hope people remember about me when I'm gone is just that I enjoyed short poems. I enjoyed writing them. I enjoyed reading the poems of others, and that that I was a person who cared about other people, and maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll put together something, but maybe I won't. And if I don't,
Mike, because this body of work is precious and it should not be lost. I think it's important that you start doing something of it, and maybe you will be able to, with some help, compile something. Start small, and in phases, and maybe we could have volumes of your work. And is there any advice would you like to give to budding haiku and senryu poets? Because all this writer's block and all happens, and how does one cope with it? And how did you cope with it?
well,
any advice you would like to give?
Well, I was talking to somebody the other day. I have books on my shelf all the time. This one's Tom Gunn, American poet. E. Cummings is a favorite of mine. Louise Gluck is a favorite of mine.
And he has his own style. E. Cummings had his own style of
He
writing,
did.
all in small letters.
Well, let me give you one of his short poems.
Yeah.
Mr. U will not be missed, who as an anthologist sold the many on the few, not excluding Mr. U.
You. Good one.
Hey,
Good one.
but I pick up a book, Tom Gunn's poetry, or I pick up a book of Eric Egan, is another one of my favorites. And I grab a book off the shelf, and I grab any phrase or word,
Hmm.
and I take it. There's no such thing as a writer's block,
Hmm.
and I think I have it someplace here. There's actually a little book. Oh, it's called
Oh,
The Writer's Block. It's
wow.
actually a book,
Oh my goodness.
and you buy it, you open it up to any page, and there's famous uh
Quotes,
authors, poets, and
quotes,
writers,
quotes.
philosophers. There's everything here, and you pick it up to any page. I call it riffing. It's after blues and jazz,
Hmm.
and it's you pick up a word or a phrase and just go with it, and that's how you're going to write. If you get
Wonderful.
obsessed with writing award-winning poems every single time, give up now, because you're
No, no, no. Won't happen.
most the greatest poets we know. You'll read story after story of authors and poets at the end of their life, uh, before they pass off, usually, or in their will, it says, burn all my notes, burn my old novels that I couldn't get published, get rid of them. I don't want them around. Don't let them mess up my stuff. And uh, uh, I don't want my secondary work, or worse, tertiary stuff that's off in the trees someplace that I never finished, to be I don't want to be remembered for having written that. I have written more bad poems than anyone I know. Okay. But I just keep them to myself. And I learned that from Bill Higginson. He gave me that piece of advice. He said, Mike, don't don't put all your poems out there. They're not all, when they're ready, and but don't put everything out there. Just don't throw stuff out there. And that was his advice to me. And good advice. But I would tell you, just write. You're writing for yourself. You're not writing for other people. Don't write for editors, because they're not you. And you have your own family, your own culture, your own nature around you is completely different from the nature around me. Uh, they you that we all perceive things differently because of the way we were brought up. But I am as much from India as I am from Michigan. As far as I'm concerned, everywhere I go, I've lived a lot of places. My wife's been to China, uh, South Africa, Russia. I've been all over Europe. I worked for a company in London, but I love London. Uh, and yes, you go to Mumbai. It's Westerners come to Mumbai and they go, "Whoa!" First time I got there, I went, "Whoa, what's going on here?"
So many people.
Yeah, I didn't know you could put that many people in. You know, and the thing I love about India, and that's the thing I love about every place I've ever lived, it boils down to this. It's not the politics, it's not the weather, it's not any of that stuff. It's the people. And the people of India have always been very generous and kind to me. And so it was very easy for me. I blended in, and I'm clearly not from India. Okay. Almost everybody identified me as the guy from America in about 30 seconds or less. But, but but they accepted me and I accept them. And that's the most critical thing, whether it's in poetry or with individuals. I leave you with this thought.
How we connect with each other. That's so important.
Accept people for what and who
Yeah.
they are. Don't worry about the differences, because they're so small in the end that they're not worth focusing on.
Wonderful, 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 Mike. Thank you so much for your time. You inspire.
Oh, thank you.
You inspire me. You inspire all of us. I was remembering Dr. Anjali Deodhar today whilst talking to you. She was the one who brought me into haiku. She used to live close by to my home, and she mentored me. After that, Pravat Kumar Padi took over. He mentored me. So I have been also very, very fortunate. Kala Ramesh, Vandana Parashar, Ravi Kiran, all my friends. You know, we are such a close-knit band of poets in Triveni, which Kala has started. And now she's taking out Haiku Katha. So in that journal, which she takes out every month. So we are so...
I should submit.
Yeah, you should, Mike. You should submit.
I haven't been submitting to anything lately.
No,
so
please do. Please do. We would love to read your work there. Write a haiboon for us. Write a haiboon for us.
Cal is publishing one in Drifting Sands.
Yeah, Drifting Sands. Richard Gran is such a great guy. He's pushed me so much. And, you know, we had a Zoom call when I was in Seattle with my son. He's such a great guy. And he, you know, motivated me to send so many, you know, pictures of fine photographs, and he puts them on Oasis. He's a great guy.
So many heroes, so many people. You can't name them all.
Can't name them. They're so kind and generous. That's why I say they add so much to our life. And how are we connected? Oceans apart. And maybe we'll never meet physically, but still we feel one with them. We feel connected. Now talking to you, I feel one with you. It's an honor and a privilege to talk to you, Mike. So much to learn from you. So much. And
no. It's just the opposite. You've gotten me to talk about myself, and I'm crazy. You know, I thank you so much, because these are the kinds of fun times that people have together, and what we all have to discover is it's not for all the nonsense that we spend our days immersed in our daily lives. That's just
routines.
That's the stuff that gets us to moments like this, where we can sit around, talk about poetry together. Absolutely. That's what makes things. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I'm grateful to Rachna Singh, the editor and founder of The Wise Owl, for giving me this opportunity. I told her, I said, I would love to talk to Mike. She said, go ahead.
Wish you. The honor was all mine.
Wish you all the very best, Mike, in your future endeavors, to build and strengthen the haiku and century community, encourage poets like us, and thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Namaskar.
Namaste.